All right, welcome to all of our attendees to Blackness Beyond the Binary. My name is Toni Tupite. I am the owner and co-founder of Black and Soul. And tonight I got my brother with me, Patrice Palmer. Let them introduce themselves to you. Let them tell you who they are and what they do.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much, brother, for allowing me to be in the space with you. Ain't seen you in a while. You look good. We got to put that out there. Patrice Palmer, they, them, theirs pronouns. I serve as the director of social and cultural inclusion for the College of Business. It's a jointly held position with New Belgium Brewing Company, where I serve as the diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist. I have my own consulting firm around working with small to medium size companies around strategic DEI initiatives that are centered with the most vulnerable populations, speaking engagements, things of that nature. So I have my foot planted in academia and I am evolving within the craft beer industry.
Sounds good. Sounds good. You bring a lot to the industry. I know we're glad to have you. I know I'm glad to have you on here, have you as family. So, welcome.
Absolutely.
So we'll jump right into it because Professor, a brother got things to do. So we'll get on into what we're doing tonight. um, so first we'll talk about how did you end up understanding what gender was beyond the binary, and let us know about like your coming out story.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it probably started growing up on the Sea Islands of South Carolina. It's a Gullah Geechee tradition culture. Gullah Geechee folks are the descendants of enslaved Africans from Sierra Leone, Gambia, even as far away as Madagascar, who cultivated the land within South Carolina, North Carolina, and Florida. South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, and Georgia, along that coast. And so we're agriculturalists, herbalists, spiritualists came through, and just because of the isolation of where we are on the Sea Islands, we got to retain a lot of our African culture. So growing up, I didn't hear a lot about, I guess, binary roles. My grandmother was very much a strong fixture in my life. And so, from that vantage point, Black women were the leaders. My father is a very stern man of army background, but my father still understood the culture. And so he never took it personally. So I didn't see that type of toxic masculinity of I'm the man, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. And so we didn't use, in talking to my grandmother, we don't use traditional she, her, he, him binary terms. We're
Okay.
talking about somebody. We say we say we say they. We don't say like that's a she or she is doing that.
Uh,
And so growing up, I didn't grow up with that a part of my vocabulary. I didn't actually start hearing more binary terminology until I got into church. So in churches is very very specific
oh
on
yeah.
what women can do and what men can do. And so growing up for most of my life on the Sea Islands, I didn't fit in because I was doing things that characteristically were not male and they weren't female. But anything that is not subservient, anything that's not subordinate, is tagged as masculine. And so even when I didn't think that's what I was doing, I was being told that's who I was. And so I grew up confused in that way, not really trying to rectify who I was as it related to my church family, my family that lived in Detroit, Michigan, and then having to reconcile that with being a part of the Gullah Nation. I don't even think when my grandmother was still living, I don't think my grandmother ever even referred to me as a woman. She would, even when she would talk to me, she would be like, "That's one of, if you talked about me, it'd be like, oh, that's one of Coralie Grand's."
Okay.
Never, they didn't give me that, so I didn't grow up with that boundary, and so coming out for me the first time, because as a trans person, you got to come out multiple times. You got to come out multiple times. So when my first coming out, I came out as very masculine centered being, but I still identified as a woman at that time. knowing that it just didn't fit, but that's what the world was doing. And so it wasn't crushing me. And so it felt better than to live as a cisgender heterosexual woman. If
Right.
I can be more of a masculine woman, at least I'm able to be myself a little bit better. But as I began to reconcile that, and I had a fallout with family, church, all that good stuff, when it came to that, when it came time for me to identify as a trans person, I fought with it because I really was like, I don't want to die a man,
Yeah.
but I was never born a woman.
Right.
So I didn't know how to reconcile that belief system. And so, being in higher ed, I had a chance to have more access to vocabulary. And so I recognized non-binary, and I started doing some studying on being non-binary. And I recognized being non-binary is very prevalent within tribal and indigenous cultures, within the African diaspora, within the Latin diaspora. Our being exists. And so I began to realize not only was I being segregated based on what I thought my gender was, but that was also very much, I would say, linked to how I was enduring racism as well. And so the
Yeah.
minute I recognized that I was actually a non-binary person, and as a Black non-binary person, I was completely in line with my Blackness,
Yeah.
then I felt compelled, and um, I felt more solid in
Yeah.
who I was, because I didn't feel like I had to choose anything anymore. I got to be Black, and a part of being Black was also being non-binary.
Yeah, I mean, my situation was probably the opposite. Like growing up I grew up in Tennessee. I was born in South Baton Rouge. Grew up in Memphis, and everything is gendered there. Those stereotypical gender roles were very heavily practiced in my family. And then we had a lot of women led things, but that was because men were absent, or
Mm,
they, you know, had substance issues, things like that. If a
mhm,
woman was managing things, it was because, there was somebody absent who was thought to be supposedly in the masculine role. So
yeah, yeah.
very gendered. Everybody's like, you're a little girl. Why are you doing this? Why are you dressing like this? Why are you talking like that? Why do you play with these things? What do you want with Ninja Turtles? And mom, she kind of let me do kind of what I wanted, but you could tell she was struggling with it a little
Mhm,
bit, because she's getting pressure from her mother and all these
yeah,
other people, the
yeah.
church, her sisters, stuff like that. So it was difficult, and coming out the first time was so heavy on me, and because I didn't know any lesbians at all.
Mhm,
Nobody that was open about it. At least I didn't
yeah.
know anybody like that. So it took me until I was in my 20s to even come out as being a lesbian or being gay. And that, felt freeing to a degree. And
Mhm,
it took some of the weight off of my shoulders when I figured out, my mom and people so they weren't so concerned about that, more so than I was safe out in LA, just sleeping in a
mhm.
car, not
Yeah, yeah.
not eating like I was supposed to. And they were like, "Oh, you haven't killed anyone? You could have said so many things that could have killed me, and
Uh-huh.
I love you, you're my child."
Mhm,
But I always, even when April and I were getting married and talking about possibly having kids, and I'm like, what titles would I use? And I'm not gonna be a dad, but I'm not mom. I'm not getting ready to be pregnant. I don't know if I want to be a wife. And I used gender neutral terms for myself and describing myself long before I came out to
mhm,
people. And I didn't know non binary was even an option until I met you, and you
mhm.
introduced yourself, with this trans identity that was outside of the binary. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. And I
Mhm.
think I remember telling you that too,
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
I
yeah.
like, I like gender neutral terms. If people say that's stupid, you're like, that's not stupid.
Mhm.
But
Nothing wrong with it. No.
it took me a whole nother year almost to to actually come to terms with that myself and come out. And April was actually the one that gave me the comfort to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking to myself, I stayed in the closet so long when it came to sexuality. I refuse to do this again.
Right.
I'm telling
Right.
everybody it's public. I'm not doing this no more.
Mm-hmm.
But reconciling that with the expectations of the Southern Black community has been difficult for me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. I think one of the things that I appreciate is having that African tie back to my community.
Mhm.
But my mother was very much connected to the church. Like
Mhm.
it is hard. It's not. This is not something that we have not even gone through some of the basic stuff yet with my mom, where she is grieving a daughter that she does not have. And
Yeah.
so also walking her through that having grief and grieving are different.
Yeah.
Grieving at least is a process and you're processing it.
Right.
But she stayed in grief for many years because she really was very much a part of the um I know what I gave birth to. I know what I raised, and you're going against that. And um really trying to also open the door for her to have better conversation, because I think for her it was more about embarrassment than
Yeah.
anything. It was embarrassment, and I was like, wow, yeah, we got folks who that we know of, grew up with,
Yeah.
are not good people. They just didn't
Yeah.
do good.
They doing all kind of crazy stuff.
And this is what you embarrassed about. Ah,
Yeah.
does it
We
having to
all
reconcile that as well.
yeah, we all got our folks, our, family members, close
Mm,
family friends, people doing stuff. You keep it inside the house, and if it gets out, you stand by these people for better, for worse. But God forbid somebody say, "Oh, I'm gay, I'm trans." Oh, you're disrespecting the Lord. You're playing with God at that point. It's a problem. Her grandkids out here playing with the Lord.
right, right, right.
Better put their name in the prayer box. Like, you get all kind of backlash for that, and I never really understood why, because it took me a long time to even reconcile being a person of faith. Like, how
Mm,
do I hold on to my faith? Because I am a believer, I am a person of faith, but how do I hold on to that and also be true to who I am?
right. And I remember I had a conversation with my mother and my father, particularly because both of my parents are evangelists, ministers, elders. My father elder. Let me not get that wrong, because we're gonna have a whole nother conversation because I didn't get his title right. But I remember having a conversation with them when they were so angry and they were talking about, like, this is, that what I was doing was against God. And I remember saying that if you take God away from me, what else do I have? You've taken all my hope. I can't be nothing
Yeah.
if you take that away from me. Well, God don't want you to. But if you take it away from me, you tell me that I don't. That He does not want me.
Yeah.
They do not want
That's
me.
basically what people are saying when they say that.
You've taken my hope. I can't. I have nothing to think outside of. I don't have. I can't dream because of that. You've taken all of that from me. The inability to be able to do that. And so reminding them of that, and I think it quickened my father more than my mother, but
Mhm.
my father totally understood that. And I said, whatever the issue is, that's our conversation. You ain't got to
Yeah.
have nothing to do with that. That's our conversation. Do
Right.
you in your conversation and let me do me in mine. But I truly believe that religion, I'm not even gonna say faith, I'm not even gonna say spirituality. Religion is so tied into the Black experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um without ever knowing the deep roots of that,
Right.
and why it continues to consume and to oppress, particularly Black and brown communities, but in this instance specifically Black folks. We are oppressed by religion.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look back into it, I watched that PBS documentary. I mean, it pretty much confirmed the stuff you grew up knowing. But like, when you're given religion, when you're given faith and religion, I mean, people, the way that it was structured to give to enslaved people was a means of control.
Mm.
But when you look at how it played out, the church was a place where a lot of Black culture was allowed to manifest itself. You get to
Mhm.
sing, you have your own language, you get to dress how you want to dress. You know that we're talking about it back then, and in
Oh yeah.
times that where you were enslaved, that was a time that Black people were allowed to be themselves.
Mhm.
And like now we're so focused on the religious part and the rules and this is this and that is that, that it's being, we're using it to oppress our own community.
Mhm.
I mean, we don't even need any more help at this point, like you.
That's real. That's real. That's real. That you know, Black religion is a that's a whole nother topic. We
Hmm.
can definitely jump head first into that. But one of the things that I love that you brought up was this connection in affirming who we are. And I think that was one of the things that scared me about coming out as a non-binary person. I got Black folks today that I respect, that I love, who are still asking to be seen as men and women.
Yeah.
And I have said I transcend that.
Yeah.
And who am I to say I don't need that validation when I have community members who are asking for it? And that was one
Right.
thing that you got to be when you were in church. You were a man, you were a woman. Like you
Mhm.
had rights, you had affirmation, you had power
And purpose. Yeah.
and purpose. And so when you come in and say, "Oh, I'm a non-binary trans person," you can see folks' face
Like,
change.
what is that?
Why?
Yeah.
when
Why would you
when
do that?
we got folks dying in the street. We got people who are being beaten and not being seen as human, and you're like, yeah, I'm not even gonna deal with that. So there is that contention, without recognizing that for us to name who we are is the magnitude of our humanity. It is what our Blackness brings.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, I mean, non-binary can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different
Mm.
people, and that shows up differently for a lot of folks. So, I mean, would you mind telling everybody how that shows up for you, or what it means when you say that you are a non-binary trans person?
Yes. As a non-binary trans person, I do not take on the rights, privileges, associations of being of a binary space. I don't take all the things of being woman, nor do I take all the things of being man. And I'm looking at that as stereotypes. I'm looking at that as prejudice. I'm looking at that as energy. I don't have one of those things. I am made up of both of them and none of them at the same time. It's a very philosophical way of looking at yourself,
You,
but very much so that is the way that I show up. There are times when I can hear my femininity, I can see it. It is very, it is something that is very strong and observant to myself. Like I know that in this moment, this is so much feminine energy that's happening, but I can feel that same fervor with masculine energy. And it's not with the toxicity. I don't feel masculine when I'm mad. I don't feel that more. I don't feel more aggressive and I'm like, oh, that's that masculinity. It's when I am probably the most nurturing is when I feel the most masculine. And because of that, because of the the innocence and the purity of that energy, that is what I feel, and that is what allows me to be who I am, because it doesn't allow any parameters, it doesn't allow any boxes, and therefore stereotypes and all the things that are associated with what you think that is, you have to toss out the window when I show up in the room. And you have to accept me for what I am, not for what you think you see.
yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you have not tested my genetic profile. You do not know how my chromosomes line up. We have not been intimate, so you see parts of my body. You don't know what I am unless I give you that. And what I'm giving you is humanity. And
Yeah.
if you cannot see that, if you cannot feel that, and you must put it into a box, right then and there is telling me how much respect you feel that I deserve.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I mean, and when you talk about boxes, that was one of the difficult things for me because I learning that I'm autistic made that you put a bow on that box for this light bulb to go off. But I'm an engineer. I live and work by categorizing things. I live and work by setting parameters for things. This needs to be within this and that. And if I, the times that I have done work in even the quality engineering space and not design or process engineering, it's more, you're going to measure, does it fit in this box? You're going to assess whether it fits in this box. So that made it very difficult. It makes me an excellent engineer, but it makes it very difficult for me to come out and say that I am a trans and non-binary. I don't fit into the gender binary. That was hard for me to even say out loud or even wrap my head around. Like, what are the parameters? Because, you're going to stand up and say that you're Black. That's something that you're going to say. It is true. That, and people know that before you even come out. You are Black. That is bestowed upon you as soon as you are conceived. But as far as this, that made it real difficult for me. And sometimes I'm still exploring that part of what that means to me. Like when I first came out, it was just like I know I'm not a man, and I know I'm not a woman. So that's where I started. But right now I see myself almost swinging like a pendulum, similar to what you described, that sometimes I see myself expressing a lot of femininity and a lot of masculinity. And I feel that energy, and some days you just feel masculine, and it's not necessarily when you're doing certain things, it's just an aura.
That's it. And it's hard for folks to understand that because we have been trained to categorize every thought process, everything. And one of the, as I've gotten older, I am realizing why the old folks say, if you live long enough, things will change. And as I live, I'm like, wow, okay, I'm not okay with this. And you begin to name those things that you want and what you don't want. And it's funny because, again, I think my wife and I are joking about this, I think yesterday, about how, like, as you get older, you name the stuff that you don't like, and what you're not about to do. And I don't know why, I just feel more entitled almost to be like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to go through that. I'm not going to put myself through that. And I am totally okay with cutting off toxic pieces of things that no longer serve me. It doesn't serve me. I'm not using it anymore. But I don't think I could have did that 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I would have been like, no, my world, I need these things. What if? Now I'm like, if I cut it alone, I'm okay with that. I only need a couple folks in the circle now. I don't need a crowd. But that, I think that comes with living. But I think it really comes with letting go. And we also recognize there's so many folks who, you mad because you ain't never lived.
You see them, and they probably part of our community, and they don't want to be it, so you don't get to be it either. You don't
get to, and that's honestly what it is. That's actually what it is. And you can feel it. You can feel that anger of like, how dare you get to name who you are in this world, and I gotta live like this. And you're like, wow, you ain't got to, right?
Like, but you don't. You don't.
You actually don't. You're living in this way because it's more comfortable for your brain, not for your heart.
I mean, and some of these people who are like that, I struggle when I see artists who are in that, like that. They're so creative, and whatever their passion is, they follow, but they are not allowing them to be themselves. You cannot be yourself. And not, in my head, I don't get that. I mean, for me, I'm putting shit in boxes all day. I'm boxing shit up. This is this, or it's that, or you can get it away, you can fix it, and you can make it this or that, or I'm not taking it. We're not going to do that in here. But people who are creative and artistic, it boggles my mind that they can create things, but they can't live in their own truth.
I think creatives have a heart for what they do, but sometimes their mind is still boxed. And we see that even if we think about the greats, Van Gogh and some of these this just full of talent, and most of those folks suffered mentally
Yeah.
because of that. Some of that was, just environment. That's a big part of your mental health. Some of it was nurture, which you have had to experience in your life. But a lot of it was having to constantly suppress a piece of themselves. And
Yeah.
it's so much energy. And I don't think a lot of people understand the mental health toll
Yeah.
it takes. Only thing I could think of is if you have a candle and you're putting like you're putting your hand over it and it burns the
Yeah.
whole time, and you know that you need to remove your hand from it,
But you're gonna keep it there.
but I got to keep it there because if I let it out, it's going to just be too bright. The energy it takes for you to do that but still show up at work,
Yep.
still be a spouse,
Yeah.
still be a sibling and a child of aging parents. It takes so much out of you to consistently do that it messes with your psyche. You're
Yeah.
gonna be angry. You're gonna be um, envious at times. You might be jealous of folks. All of your emotions are probably revved up on 10 because you're spending so much time suppressing, 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 and it hurts.
Yeah.
There's a physical pain when you have to do that,
It is.
and yeah, I mean, like literally, I would go. I think when I was in college, I had a straight up ulcer and didn't know why.
Mm.
I was like, I don't know why I have an ulcer. And they were like, well, it seemed like you're holding in stress. And I'm thinking, my whole life is stress. What are you talking about? This is, what are you talking about? I know no one who's ever had an ulcer. Am I not holding my stress correctly? What are you saying? How am I suffering from this sore, literally, that is eating away at the lining of my stomach because I am not able to be who I know I am? I, to look myself in the mirror as a non-binary person and to see me, there is nothing that I have gone through that has equaled that satisfaction.
Yeah. And that's real. That's real. And people who don't recognize it, that part of Coming to America where he like his mama called him Clay, so I'm gonna call him Clay.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like some black folks and people in general get like that when you say non-bi. Well, your mama told me she had a little girl, so that's who you're gonna be.
Mhm,
She gets to pick, and that's just not what. That's how people get cut off.
mhm.
That's how you get space put between you and another person, and doing stuff like that. And you can get it sometimes from people in the trans binary. I've
Oh, yeah.
experienced that. Oh, you just too scared to go all the way and transition and to be a trans man. And I'm like, but I'm not one. Or
I've
they'll
had
tell you
that.
you're not trans
Oh
at
yeah,
all.
you're not trans. Stop telling people you're trans. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking like, you do not understand the amount of testosterone that actually lives inside of me. I We can go toe to toe. I don't like to argue. So when someone, I have to be very, I've definitely been in academia long enough that I can shut down parts of my emotions. But that I will say that will cause me to say it again. Like it will cause me to get to a point where I'm like, bro, like I'm gonna swing on you, and it ain't gonna be. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna just tell you that I'm gonna win. Whatever's about to happen, I'm gonna win. You need to know that. Because I feel like folk like to take that from me. That you're taking that from me for what?
Yeah.
Because if we want the truth to be out there, if we want it to be truthful, it is the non-binary folks who push the envelope. It's
Mhm.
not the folks who could blend in.
Yep.
You get forgotten, you get caught up in the rush.
Yeah.
It's the folks who are the masculine center women who fought and died for the opportunity. Now we would say more than likely they may be non-binary, but
Yeah.
at the time that's all they could give you was that was only vocabulary they had. So obviously that's who they were in that time. But we recognize those are the folks
Yep.
who didn't pass, are the folks who are holding the mantle and the folks who get the most flack for it. And we can see that in the Black community too. If you could pass,
Yep.
You had a better life. You
Yep.
didn't have to deal with certain things. But it was those of us who couldn't pass.
Yeah.
I always been dark. So I can't pass
Yeah, I don't think
as
you got it up to
nothing
telling
then.
nobody you ain't black. You can't tell
Right.
them
I
that.
can't walk in and claim anything.
Hmm.
Now if I go to New York, some folks might claim me, but I can't just claim anything because of the hue of my skin. And I'm thankful of growing up in a household that honored that, so that when I heard bad things about myself, I knew they wasn't talking to me.
Yep.
My daddy said I'm cute. I don't know what you talk about. Like I don't feel that. I don't have that problem. Everybody in my family the same color as me. What you talk about?
Yep.
I thought this how everybody was supposed to look, right? And so like that is a part of, I think, again, what people don't recognize. I ain't never been able to pass as nothing.
Yep.
And so because of that, I've learned how to fight to make sure that you don't have to pass.
Yep. Well, we can leave that at there, brother. Fight so people don't have to pass. I think that's a notable quote to kind of end our dialogue on. Does anybody who's participating have any questions for either of us? Either or both. One of us can answer.
Yes, yes.
Both of us can answer. But we're here to take your questions. Don't be shy. I don't think anybody is too sensitive in this discussion. Just be, respectful. But if you have
Man.
some on your mind, ask us.
Yes, absolutely.
But let's see what we got going on in here. Brittany says, thanks for doing this.
Hmm.
Uh, Rudy enjoys the Ninja Turtle references and the Coming to America
Yes.
references. Okay. We got one question from Ren, and it says, hello, how do you feel about dictated days like today? Which is, I'm guessing, Ren, my sister, is speaking to International Non-Binary Peoples Day.
Hmm.
And how do we keep this conversation going outside of today?
Mm. I hate that we had to designate a day.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you have a platform, you use what you got, and I think that's just a rule that you grow up with in the Black community. We don't always get a lot of stuff, but when you get something, you use what you got. So when we have platforms like this, is a great thing for Tony. Again, I appreciate you for even asking me to come on and have this conversation. This is the time for us to talk to each other and say, I see you, I hear you. You don't need to be validated by nobody else. I see you, I hear you, keep going. And I hope that we don't let that mantle go out,
Yeah.
because it's so easy to then get caught up in all the other um, things that are going on in the world, and then all the other times of observance that we have going on. You can still observe things and keep who you are as a core part of that. You can still center yourself, but never negate other people's lived experiences and struggles. And I think that's something that sometimes folks forget. It's like, oh, this time has ended. Let's pick up the next thing. Oh, that ends. Pick up the next thing. I can't take off being Black. So even though Black history has has gone on, I still make history when I show up at work because I'm still the first, right? Like that doesn't stop. And I still keep that door open so that this actually becomes history and not something that we are currently and presently in. So I want to continue to open up doors. And I think when you have been, when you center that, we can continue to do the work. Don't forget about it because it's easily forgotten. You can center your lived experience without negating other people's lived experience. And you do that by continuously showing up authentically, visibly, as well as uplifting other folk.
Yep.
Because if you are not uplifting other folk, if you're saying I celebrate Black history, but after the month is over, you don't talk to Black folks no more, you're not in spaces where you are uplifting Black people, I am sorry, you do not support and honor Black history. You don't.
Sure.
Transgender Day of Visibility, if you're not fighting out there, on all 364 other days, then no, you don't actually care about that day.
Yeah.
So I think it really it goes back to us to continue to do the work and to hold each other accountable. If I can't hold you accountable, then we ain't doing the same work. And
Yep.
Toni, we've talked about that before. We have
Yeah.
different ways of doing things,
Yeah.
but I know that if you call me and say, "Yo, you was wrong," I know you're coming from love. I know you're coming from respect. I know you're coming because you recognize who I am and what I bring to the space. So if you
Yeah.
can't do that, no.
Yeah. I mean, and that's our yours and my relationship is built on love and accountability. That's the same tenets of the relationship I have with my wife. I have this relationship with my parents. Anybody that's going to be close to me, that love and respect and accountability. I will, tell you if you. Everybody knows that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But as far as Ren's question to the dictated day, I agree with you. I think you have this day. To me, I think of it like a birthday. Yeah, when it's my birthday, we might have some drinks, we might get a little dinner, but do my loved ones not value me the rest of the days? Like if I call them and ask them and need, so, oh, it ain't your birthday. We not good. We not worried about that today. It's not your birthday no more.
Mm-hmm.
But so I kind of see these days similar to that. It's a day to, where there's a time to really focus and have some conversation about it and really center that, but that doesn't mean it's not centered the rest of the year or that it shouldn't be. Yeah, April has a birthday, but if I decided that, we're not going to celebrate April at any other time during the year other than her birthday, or I'm not going to, serve her in marriage or be a decent spouse unless it's her birthday, then what are we doing? Much like you said, what are you doing the rest of the time? All right, we got one more question from sis Lola. She said, first off, thank you both for doing this. I would love for you to talk about how folks specifically working in hospitality can be more inclusive to non-binary people. Okay. All right, you the guest. Go ahead, my brother.
I'm the guest. All right. I think the first thing, and again, this isn't hospitality.
Yeah, that's what she said.
The first thing that comes to mind, and it literally makes my heart glad, is when I have a restroom. Like I can actually be in the space and I have a restroom. Like that actually lets me know that the space is actually safe enough for me to let a part of my guard down, and they recognize my humanity in this. That I need to have a place where I can use a restroom without fear of condemnation.
Yeah.
And if something happens to me, hopefully I can go to the front and say, hey, this happened to me, and it's addressed. And it's not like, well, you're in the wrong bathroom, so that's probably the problem. No. I need for folks to be able to, so that literally when I go into places, I know how much of a guard I'm going to be able to have. I actually know how long I could be in the space, because if they don't have a restroom for me, I can't be there for too long. I can't eat and drink the way that I probably would because I don't have a restroom, right?
Yeah.
And so like those are like, that literally is the first thing that I do, is to check in and make sure that I have a space I can relieve myself. That's something that I think is still on the bottom rung and folks don't necessarily do. The second thing is to use gender neutral language.
Yep.
Like you don't, like if you see me and my wife, you don't have to say, hey ladies, how
Yeah.
are you all doing? Like, do I look like this woman?
Yeah.
Are we giving off the same vibes right here? Like we obviously are looking different in this, but if you aren't sure, hey,
Yeah.
how can I help you all?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be gendered. It doesn't have to be a pleasantry. That's fine to be able to do that. Or I went to a space and the person at the front desk introduced themselves and they said their pronouns. And they're like, hey, are there any pronouns that you have that we, and I was just like, we will always stay at this hotel. I don't care where we are. This is the hotel we will always use. Why? Because it was something that literally took that person a few seconds to do that made me feel that I was wanted and valued in the space. They let me know before I said anything. If you need to have any access to restrooms, let us know. We have gender neutral here. We have binary here. And I was like, why isn't this something that everybody is doing? To me, those are the bare minimums.
Yep.
That's the bare minimum.
We can't even do that. So yeah. But I agree with you about all of that. And also for the pronouns, you're wearing a name tag anyway, that can go on there.
It's not that hard.
All right. So one more question we got here. Brittany says, Patrice, you spoke about always being the first at work and in other spaces. Can you both share with us what it would be like to be in a space where you weren't the first? What would that be like and what would it mean to you? And if it's not too much to ask, how can we all help bring that world and vision into being? Oh, that's a huge question.
That's huge.
But
that part. That's wow.
But the first one is, what would it be like if you weren't the first in a space?
I would be able to put my shoulders down.
Mm-hmm.
I would be able to relax because I am usually the one. When you're the first person to do stuff, what people don't recognize is that they will base everyone else after you.
Yep.
Your speech, your tone, your humanity is actually speaking for everyone who will look like you. Yep. In this space. And that's the part that sucks because nobody else has to do that.
Yeah, and nobody wants to let their community down. If I do something that is out of line, you're going to project it onto all of these other people and instead of letting me be accountable for that.
I can't do that with no other group of people. Nobody else can come in and be a jerk to me and I get to assign who they are to everybody who look like them. I don't get to do that with nobody else, but I recognize every time I come into a space, I got to look the part. I got to sound the part. I got to be smarter than everybody. I got to be the hardest worker in the room. I have to have the extreme work ethic. I have to lay a foundation. And even when folks are like, you're doing that, and maybe the person coming behind you may not live up to that, they at least get a choice now.
Right.
Because if you have no precedent, you have no blueprint.
Right.
And the biggest thing that I could say, which is the shortest answer, is create an infrastructure that I don't have to be the first. Don't just hire more people. Don't just invite more people into the space. Create an infrastructure that actually allows for different types of people to be in the space. That is something that is not always followed through. We are looking for the quota. We're looking for the tasks that we get to check off, but no one wants to do the extra work to make sure that when I leave a job, they actually listen to my exit interview and take the notes that I have given them and actually make sure it's implemented so the next person don't have to go through what I just went through. That don't happen.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, what's the point of doing diversity quotas when you're expecting everybody who doesn't fit, the majority narrative or the majority identity to assimilate to that in their speech, in the way that they dress, in the way that they behave, in the things that they're interested in? Like going places and expecting, and craft beer is notorious for this. I mean, everybody isn't gonna want to hike. I might like to drink beer, but I don't want to camp. I don't want to hike. I'm not interested in any of that. Like, I don't want to wear Patagonia or anything like that. And I might not understand your slang or your vernacular either. I want to talk like me, not you. And when I speak like me, I don't want you to start speaking like me. You speak like you. But for me, it would bring me much comfort to not be the first one in the space. It brings me much comfort. And, I've been the first and I've not been the first. And the times where I'm not the first, I take comfort in that. I take comfort in knowing that somebody has been there most of the time. There are some times where the first one is one who either wanted to or was expected to assimilate. And now that this person has done that, that's the expectation of me.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not interested or gonna do any of that. But that's the struggle with not being the first and being the first. It's a double-edged sword there when there's so few. And I look at this from the engineering standpoint. it's like data. These are humans, but the more Black people you are around, or the more non-binary people you are around, you realize that this is not a monolith, and there is a huge spectrum to how that is expressed amongst all of these people.
Mhm.
We can share a culture, and there's some similar struggles, some similar things, but it's people want to create this monolith out of Blackness, especially in transness and in queerness that just doesn't exist.
Mhm.
And
We're made up of very many nations and many tribes, and it's a lot of different folks. I mean, even if you from Tennessee, I don't know all the stuff that happens out of Memphis. Like if I showed up in Memphis, you would be like, you ain't from here.
yeah,
I'm a sound different. But my skin tone is what you're saying. Oh, y'all got to be the same. I
yeah,
just hate the fact that nobody else has to deal with that. Nobody else has to live in the shadow of people they don't even know.
right, right. So yeah, there there's that. If anybody else has a question, I got time for one more. But like I
Mhm.
said, my brother, the professor, got shit to do today. I got classes to teach and shit. So if anybody else got one more question, I think we got time for one more.
Yes, yes. I will throw out as folks are putting that one other question is I love that you said that being non-binary is also not it's not monolithic. You don't have a look to be non-binary. There are folks who are extremely non-binary and look very binary. They
Yeah,
just that's the way that they interact in the world is still in a very what others may perceive as very binary. It doesn't mean that's who they are. And so what I would definitely say is believe people when they tell you who they are.
yeah,
Believe people. You don't need evidence of what a person says that they are. Believe them and treat them as they want to be treated, not as you deem them fit to be treated.
yeah. Okay. So other than that, we didn't get another question. So fam, go ahead and plug anything you want the people to know. Where can they find you on social media?
Yes, yes. I am all over LinkedIn. I talk on LinkedIn probably every day, sometimes two, three times a day, depending on what we're talking about in the world. So please interact. I enjoy it. As well as there are folks who need to hear this in the professional space. And they don't hear it on a regular basis. So a lot of times what they coming from and what they're coming to don't make no sense. But follow me, Patrice M. Palmer, on LinkedIn if you want to just hear about the craziness that is my life, and my sneakers that I have, or the new hair that my wife is sporting. I think her hair, I don't know what color her hair is today. I don't know what color that is. It's not red, but I just don't know what color it is. I just show up so I don't get fired. But if you want to hear things
Tell
like
her,
that,
April listening, she gonna tell her you on here.
she's probably texting right now. Patrice don't know what your hair color is. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. I'm not gonna do that. But if you're into hearing the wackiness of my life, definitely jump on IG, black_educator, and at the C is replaced with a K. So follow me under black_educator. You hear some of the stuff I'm doing with the consulting firm, but more you'll just hear about me and the craziness that is the Palmer household. Not super crazy, but my wife is a makeup artist and a hairstylist. So you'll hear about the crazy shit that happens when you don't recognize the person that's in your house. So talk about that.
Yeah. April keeps telling me she wants you to say Jolly has her own business. I thought that was covered when you said she was a makeup artist and a hairstylist.
Yes,
That
my
is a
wife
business.
has her own business. Jolly's World of Beauty. You can follow her at Jolie's. She's a hairstylist here in Fort Collins. If you're in the Fort Collins area and you need your hair done, come holla. If you like paparazzi jewelry, she does sell paparazzi jewelry. If you just want to see what she's done to her hair, she had a fro this big, and now I don't know if it's red. It might be red, but it might be magenta. I don't know. But it's shorter now. I don't know. It's
She
shorter
loves
now. And she just went
very
in and
different colors.
yes. And then sometimes it's like lime green, and sometimes I don't know what she be doing. I'm just here. It's just like having a lot of girlfriends. That's what I have in my house.
Yeah, every time she
One
talks
girlfriend with a
about
lot of
you.
girlfriends.
But yeah, April says Jolly's the only person that can do hair in all of Colorado. Just saying.
We do. We got some folks coming as far as Wyoming and Nebraska to get their hair done. So
Uh,
she's doing
that's,
pretty good.
that,
Yes,
that's crazy. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. Thank you, my brother, for giving me your time. We got to do
absolutely.
this more often and do this
Yes,
again. I think people are going to get a lot out of this conversation. Of course, you have my love. Give Jolly my love,
absolutely.
and we will shut it down here. Have fun at class.
Absolutely. I will have fun in class. Love you, April. Love you so much. And thank you again, brother, for allowing me to be on here and doing the work. You do the work. And I think that's something that we need to be able to give our Black leaders their flowers now. And I respect you. I love you. And I hope that every time I interact with you, you know and feel the love because you not only do you deserve it, but you do it selflessly, and I am appreciative of being able to engage with it.
You're gonna make me cry in front of all these people, and I'm not trying to do that right now.
I'm just saying we need to give folks their flowers now, and you are one of the folks that don't get their flowers and the work that you have done for the movement of Blackness within craft, authentic as well as unapologetic, and it doesn't happen, and it needs to be said. And if this is gonna get on out there and other people are gonna get to hear it, then I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it loud. Not only do I respect and I love and honor you, but I appreciate the selflessness because it doesn't have to happen. You don't have to do this, but you do it because you know it's the right thing to do. And for that, I am indebted. I am indebted.
See, I told you I wasn't trying to do it. You did it anyway.
Yo, bro, we gotta love on each other. We gotta have that non-binary love on each other and be able to respect each other and respect the power that each other has. And we don't do it enough, and we need to.
Yeah, and you definitely. I mean, if this hasn't been said enough, and I probably don't say this enough, you're somebody I look up to, somebody I respect. I see you as a big brother, somebody I can always call and talk to and get comfort and get a correction and get turned in the right direction. And I appreciate you, for that, tough love as well as nurturing love. And that's something you can't get both in a lot of friendships. And I appreciate that. And I'm glad to have you as family. I love you and Jolly, dearly. I'm sad that I didn't meet you until it was almost time to go from Colorado, but I'm definitely glad that I did. And, now I got some family for life. So I
Oh yes, yes,
appreciate
yes.
that.
Well, this is what you got to do, and I hope that more folks, when they are doing things like that, like love on each other. It's hard enough. It's hard out here. Love on each other, man. Love on each other, because we ain't gonna get it. So again, appreciative of everyone who was on this call today, and the folks who will be listening to it. Ask questions, and again, let's continue to keep the dialogue. I'm still gonna be non-binary tomorrow, so I can still answer questions if folks need it.
For sure.
All right.
All right, brother. You take care.
Bye.
Bye.